to go?
Ready to go.
Okay, so for my policy is a little bit different than most other people's. I am arguing that everyone should pay exactly $22.36 per year. The reason that this is different is because by doing absolutely nothing, that number stays the same. It's a little confusing, but it makes sense in light of taxes. What I'm arguing for is that everyone should pay this $22.36 in taxes to fund these 17 federal programs. Why would you want to continue these federal programs, Gavin asked. Good question, Gavin. These various programs are under threat under the Trump administration. These include the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which runs Sesame Street, and the Office for Violence Against Women. Other things like many of the energy sector departments are also under threat. So, before I get to Clinton, I am going to give you a little overview of my speech. So I do want to talk about Trump and kind of provide a rationale for why he wants to cut those 17 programs. But before that, I want to give you a brief history of the congressional budget, starting with Bill Clinton, moving to Trump, and then I also want to put that $22.36 into perspective. So, Bill Clinton. Under Bill Clinton was the last time that the congressional budget was balanced, which means that the amount of revenues that the government gets is greater or equal to the amount that it spends. That was so long ago that it happened in 1998, the year I was born, and continued until 2001. Now, the federal budget is a very big task, so actually in 2001, when Baby Bush was in office, that budget was actually created by Bill Clinton. So from 1998 to 2001, all of Bill Clinton's budgets were balanced. Moving to the Obama, here is a article from the Chronicle of Higher Education, which shows some of the research and development put forth by Clinton, and then the one on the right is from Goodwin, which is part of Physics Today, which shows a breakdown of the research and development sectors. Moving to Obama. The top infographic shows government spending and then government revenues. If you look to see the $3.7 trillion put in spending, that is $500 billion more than the U.S. government is projected to make. So this comes from the Congressional Budget Office, and it's the 2015 federal budget, and it shows that Obama's budget is running at a deficit. So, moving on to Trump. When he got elected, one of his promises was to balance the federal budget. Let's see. When he came into office in mid-March, his proposal was unveiled for the 2018 federal budget. Now, the federal budget is very important to a lot of science, is important to science and is important to the arts. So many articles were immediately published following. One of them comes from Jeffrey Mervis, who published in Science magazine. He talks about the budget being implemented in October and talks about how there are major cuts to the energy sector. David McAuliffe also writes for the American Association for the Advancement of Science. He also published this article in March 2017, and he talks about how cuts to renewable energy are put forth in the funding proposals. He also talks about how, knowing Trump's history and the passing of executive orders that largely cut renewable energies, that those are more likely to pass than many of the other cuts put in the budget. The arts are also affected. Sopan Deb writes for the New York Times Arts Division, and in March 2017, she talks about how Trump is trying to cut endowments for the arts and the humanities. This accounts for only $300 million of the $1.1 trillion of discretionary budget spending. So it's just a drop in the bucket that Trump is trying to cut. So why is Trump trying to cut all of these things? Well, like I said before, referring to the Obama administration, they were running at a deficit. And a deficit creates a lot of borrowing. We mainly borrow from China. And that borrowing comes with interest. So not only do we have to pay back that money, but then we have to pay back interest. And it's a compounding effect, which puts our country greater into debt. It also, these cuts also work for his platform. His platform wants to bring back the coal industry, so cutting the renewable energy sector makes sense. And he also, and the Republican platform has always argued to get rid of things like privatizing Sesame Street. So all of these budget plans kind of line up with the Republican doctrine. So, to the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation is a conservative think tank which published a 2016 blueprint for balance. And this budget was actually aimed at the Obama administration and was published when Obama was in office, but both houses of Congress were, in fact, Republican. This blueprint argued for the 17 federal programs that I mentioned in the beginning to be cut. And now that Trump has come into office, this blueprint for balance that they published is one of the main sources drawn from in creating the budget. Back to the 17 federal programs. These 17 federal programs were talked about by Taylor Temper, who writes for Money Magazine, a sub-company of Time. And in 2017, she identified these 17 federal programs as most likely to be cut by the Trump administration. To go into detail about some of these corporations, there's the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which houses things like Sesame Street, but not only do they run that, they ran a documentary about veterans coming home, and they also use some of their budget to fund services for returning vets, so they host job fairs for returning veterans. And Trump wants to privatize this. The budget for the Corporation of Public Broadcasting is $445 million, which averages out to the average American cost of $1.37. All of this information comes from Taylor Temper's article. He also wants to cut the Office of Violence Against Women, which has 25 federal grant programs that aim to reduce domestic violence, sexual assault, and dating violence. The budget is $480 million and only costs $1.48 to the average American. So, to really put all of these into perspective, Evan Pushak, who is commonly known as NerdWriter on YouTube, looked at Taylor Temper's article and created an example for it. In his example, he paid for 6 different grocery store items pictured there. These include toasted sesame water crackers, smoked mozzarella cheese, chickpea chips, eggs, coconuts, and scallions. All of these things equal out to exactly $22.36, the exact amount that is being used by each American to pay for these federal programs. So, to really put into perspective how minuscule the amount of money these programs require, these 17 programs are that much if you look. The yellow dash shows the non-defense discretionary spending that these 17 programs take up. Of the full discretionary spending, they only account for that little sliver. The non-defense discretionary spending is only half of it. Defense spending accounts for the other half. Of the total budget, all federal spending, you can barely even see the yellow line anymore. That yellow line represents the 17 federal programs that Donald Trump is trying to cut. While the motives for cutting it make sense, the effect is merely pedantic and doesn't really serve any sort of purpose. So, what should you do to keep Sesame Street in business and keep sexual assault low? Well, with the 2018 budget, it's basically already been passed, so there's not a lot that you can do. But every year, a new budget is formulated, and actually, the 2019 budget is underway. So, to be able to bring these programs back and to keep the $22.36, to keep the funding, all you need to do is call Congress and let them know that you don't like date rape and you like Sesame Street. Thank you.